Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers Inspiration. I'm your host, Harriet Cole. Very honored to be with you today. Hope that you started off this day with a smile somewhere on your face, in your heart, somewhere you're recognizing the goodness that comes with just waking up and being able to be present, being able to be in this day and really decide how you want to live it. Last week, we talked about the value of silence and the power of silence and how sometimes silence can protect you. You know, sometimes we say things in the heat of the moment and it can be detrimental to us and others for a much longer time than being quiet and possibly waiting for the right time to say something. And after the broadcast, well, first of all, during the broadcast, a lot of you wrote in and said that this resonated with you and just finding that moment, being able to be still and quiet when needed is important. And that impulsivity that some of us have uh, has not paid off. And certainly I gave some examples of how it hasn't paid off for me. But afterward, in the debrief with my team, we talked about the other side of this and how, for many of us, and I'll include myself on this side too, we bite our tongue. For many of us, we don't quite know when is the right time to speak up. That for many people going through something, whether it's a conflict with a loved one, conflict at work, conflict wherever it might be, that a conflict with a neighbor. I know with my advice column, Sense and Sensitivity, I get a lot of questions from people who are having challenges with their neighbors and trying to figure out, well, when do I say something? And how do I say something so that it will resonate and not create more harm than good? These are real issues that people face on a daily basis. And so I decided that this week, let's look at the other side of this. We talked about practicing silence last week and talked about the value of that. And now let's look at, when should you speak up? When is it the right time to say something? When is it detrimental to your life if you don't say something, to your life or perhaps the lives of other people? When is it really important to have the courage to speak up, to stand up for yourself, to address something that you think is wrong? And it's not a question of being right or wrong, but if injustice is happening, when should you speak up about it? I think this is a profound question and something that many of us grapple with. And what my team and I were talking about is, for some people, it's much, much harder to actually find your voice, to speak up when you need to. And sometimes for some of us, it can be easier to just stay quiet. And to stay quiet at some moments can squash your spirit, can be harmful to your steps forward. Because if something happens and you don't say something, it could seem as if you are co-signing a behavior, an attitude, a something that has been said to you, when in fact, perhaps it is you just couldn't figure out when to say something. So I wonder if for any of you who are connected in this moment or, on demand later, uh, have you ever had that as a situation where being silent isn't the harder thing for you? Speaking up is harder for you. Standing up for yourself, defending yourself in a way that feels appropriate, it feels safe, that gives you the space to be heard. See, these are a lot of things surrounding speaking up, saying something, defending yourself. Because in the moment, in an emotional moment, I'm gonna say that is still not the right time to speak up. That's what I talked about last week. It wasn't so much that I was wrong, I picked the wrong moment and the wrong way of addressing something that bothered me. So how do you figure that out? It's tough. This is tough stuff to navigate, when is it right? How do you express whatever is on your heart that you feel very, very strongly needs to be addressed? How can you find your voice in a way that you actually can be heard? Because if you say something, but that saying it falls on deaf ears, what's the point of saying it? How can you say something so that you can be heard? How can you share information that may be very, very sensitive so that the person that you want to receive it can receive it? And I want to tell you, from in my column, which I've been writing now for, I think it's about 22 years, Sense and Sensitivity. Um, People write in questions and I answer them. And a lot of questions have to do with how to address a sensitive topic. You know, there's some kind of conflict that occurs between people who care about each other for whatever reason, whether they are in a relationship, part of a family, neighbors, coworkers, boss, employee, uh, members of a club, whatever, human relationships. And people often will say, should I say something? And how can I say something so that it doesn't make the relationship worse? Not always easy to do. And I don't have a 100% solution. I'm grappling with this myself, which is how we came up with this topic in the first place last week. But I think it's worth considering. Know when to speak up. And so I think if we first look at how we deal with other people, it's always easier to think about other people than ourselves. So if you see someone uh, being rude or disrespectful to someone else, they call it being a bystander if you say nothing, which is not good. But a lot of people do find the courage to speak up and say, wait a minute. People come to each other's defense when they notice that someone is speaking to a person inappropriately or taking credit for something that isn't theirs. People often speak up. Not always, but they often do speak up and try to stand up for another person when they feel that the person is being wronged. Even in those situations, you need to choose what is the right moment. Like if it is your boss and you're in a big room of people, do you choose to speak up in front of others? Or do you wait in private and say, I think that probably hurt that person's feelings or maybe wasn't as productive as it could have been? You pick your moments. You often speaking up in a larger group and telling somebody they did something wrong backfires. So it's often easier to do it one-on-one in private. So if someone is going to be embarrassed by something, that it's private. Although it's also true, sometimes you really do need to say, wait a minute, allow that person to speak, let that person finish talking. Give them a chance. That's something for you to think about as you figure out how to engage with others so that you make the best choice in supporting others and also in supporting yourself, right? And so, not that any of this is easy, but you want to take a pause. Take a pause and think about what is the situation that you're facing, whether it is something for you or something where you're noticing what happens to another person and you're deciding, what does my heart tell me I should be doing now? Right? What does my heart say is the appropriate thing to do to really stand in my power and support this moment? Is it better to be quiet? Is it better to speak up? How do I speak up? All of these things are they're subtleties, but they're important. Let's look. I have two quotes today. I want to look at the first one now for us to kind of look at this and unpack. And the first one says, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. And this is from the writer, thinker, poet T.S. Eliot. So let's hear this again, everybody. Listen closely. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. So, see, it's that push pull. And I do believe that courage is the ingredient that is so important. Hello, Kimberly from Detroit. Thanks for joining. Um, Courage. Do you feel like you have courage when things are tough, when you feel vulnerable, when you are unsure how to move forward for whatever the reason is? Do you find yourself silenced or buoyed enough to say something? Now, what helps with that is the second piece of this. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Rather than having an impulsive, a knee-jerk reaction to whatever is happening, if you sit down and listen beyond just the words that are being said, but what is meant, what is happening? You know, that in that book, the Four Agreements, one of the agreements is not to take things personally. Well, if you can sit back and say, okay, this is not about me. I may be feeling attacked, but maybe this is not just about me. If it is not just about me, then, and I look at the other person, what is this person saying or doing that is really bothering me? And can I sit back for a moment and figure out why? If I take a moment to sit down and listen, what is this person saying? And what is the person not saying? You know, when I had the big conflict with my friend last week, in part, I think the difficulty was we were thinking about things from very different perspectives based upon our own experience. So my experience said this is what happened. That person's experience said this is what happened. And they were completely different things based upon who we are and the lens through which we see the world. So I wasn't listening, I was mad. And I reacted based upon the way that I think people should do things. Well, it didn't it didn't have the, impact that I wanted it to have because the person didn't understand what I was saying or rejected what I was saying. And so when you sit down and listen, try to figure out where is the person coming from and how can you be heard based upon how that person hears, because it's not about you. Hello, Nyla. I hope I said your name right. From New York City. I'm in New York City too. Uh, I think this idea of being able to pause, assess the moment, and really hear what the other person is saying, observe the other person. What state is the person in? What state, emotional state? What, how can you figure out where this person is coming from? Because when you can do that, that's when you are able to speak up, to stand up and say something so that they can hear you. It's not about right or wrong. Being heard is so important when you stand up and speak. You want to be heard. You want whoever the other party is to be able to hear and understand what it is you're saying. So let's go to the next quote, which is something that I've shared with you before. And I just think it's important for you to, I use this way of filtering language to great effect, and I'd like for you to consider it as well. This is the one from Rumi. Do you have that, Fallon? It's the 4 gateways of speech. The 4 questions I learned in my spiritual practice, 4 questions that if you ask yourself these questions before you say something, this is the operative. Before you say something, ask, is it true what you're about to say? Is it necessary? Is it timely? Is it kind? Okay, those are 4 giant questions, but it's put forth as the 4 gateways of speech that, a gateway that you have to open the door. This is the question that you need to answer before that gate can open. And that there are 4 gates before you get to the most protected and amplified and fortified and pure communication that you could have. Whatever is on your heart, whatever you think you need to get through, check. Is it true? Now, that is such a big question right now because we have so much information that there's so many untruths that are batted about in our culture right now that it is very hard to figure out if something is true. But to the best of your ability, try to figure out if whatever you are about to say out of your mouth is true. So, how did you get this information? Did someone tell it to you? Did you research it? Uh, if it's about how you feel, is it true about this whole situation, or is it why is it true for you? Like, what is truth today? Tough question. But a lot of times we just share things that we watched on TV, we saw on social media. Somebody told us and we're saying it again. Many, many times we say things without attribution. And I'm teaching a class at FIT now, journalism class, and one of the number one things that I'm teaching my students is about attribution and credible sources. Is it true? And why do you believe it's true? What is your source that says something is true? So that one question can have you pondering for a long time. Whatever is about to come out of your mouth, is it true? And then is it necessary? There could be information that you have gleaned that is true. So, you know how sometimes people say you're piling on? Is it necessary to say whatever this thing is at this moment? Is it? Is it necessary? Does it add to the conversation? Does it add to the experience? Does it add to the amplification of knowledge? Is it necessary? And can you pause and ask yourself that question? Because truth doesn't mean, truth can be something you can just hold on to and know it, but is it necessary for you to say it, to share it? Third question, is it timely? Is now the right moment for you to share whatever it is that is on the tip of your tongue? And timeliness has a lot to do with people's ability to receive whatever it is that you want to share, which is why I do my best to ask people, "Is this a good time?" When right before jumping into whatever a conversation may be, "Is this a good time? Do you have time to listen?" Because if people don't have the time, you have this burning thing, it's so important, I've gotta tell you this right now. Well, if they're doing something else, they're distracted, this is not the moment for them to be open to receive whatever it is that you're gonna say, then you're an irritant. Then you get frustrated because you're not heard. Is it timely? Even when you schedule an appointment with someone, follow up and say, "Is this still a good time?" And you could let people know, "I need about 5 minutes of your time," or half hour, or an hour, whatever it is. There's a woman who I love who is extremely pushy, and she sometimes wants, me to pay attention to a project that she's working on, and she'll send it, and, "Can you look at this right now?" No. And sometimes I have to say no if I don't have time, and it's not because I don't care about you, it's because I don't have time right now, and I'm not sure when I'm gonna have time. There are other people who have said, "Push, push, push. I want you to pay attention to this project that I'm working on." And I remember saying, "I'm on a deadline. I do not have time to look at that now." I have learned, how they say no is a complete sentence? I have learned to say no a lot more because it hurts people's feelings if you say yes and then you can't follow through. But some people do not accept no as an answer. "Please, can you please, can you please?" And if you cannot or do not want to do something, don't say you'll do it. Just hold fast to why no is no. If it isn't timely, then you need to make that point clear. I've told one friend who really wants me to get involved in a project that she's working on, I don't have time. My schedule is brimming with responsibilities, including some pretty hefty deadlines, and I must focus on those in order to get finished. So I cannot take on one additional thing. It's just not possible. It does not mean I don't care about you. It means I have to honor my commitments. And sometimes people have a hard time with that. But I want to say to you, what is super important is for you to honor your time. And so when you are engaging with other people and you ask that question of yourself, this communication that I want to share, is it timely? And if it's not, don't share it then. Now, that fourth question, ooh, this one is really challenging. Is it kind? Is it kind? I want to say I think of myself as a kind person. I think I usually am. And when tensions are high, when frustrations are full, when I'm tired, when I wish I was doing something else, whatever the things are, I know sometimes I can have a sharp tongue. I can say something that could be hurtful. And sometimes I feel justified because, well, you did blah, 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 blah. But I'm telling you from personal experience as well as from working with a lot of people on communication, if you can find a kind way to say something, the outcome is going to be better. If you can pause long enough to figure out a way to phrase something so that it is uplifting rather than incisive, everyone will benefit. You can give people feedback without destroying them. I have often talked about this thought of endings are more important than beginnings, and I feel this very strongly because at the beginning of anything, people are usually they put their best foot forward. They wanna look the best, they wanna sound the best, they wanna connect. At the end of things, they often don't care, and it's just like, "Okay, this is over. I don't care. I'll say it, do whatever I want." Well, I think that because sometimes people have that attitude at the end of an experience, a relationship, whatever it might be, what they often do is to say something mean and hurtful and, really that can just turn the knife, so to speak. They create what I call roadkill, the emotional roadkill. So think about it. Have you ever been in a relationship where it's ending and you're not happy and you just say something like all the stuff that is compiled over all the time that you were in that relationship and you did this and you did that and I can't believe you're this and this is who you are really, this is what you did, kind of venomously. Sometimes when that happens, the person you're talking to is emotionally wounded and sometimes they never completely heal from it. Never mind, you have moved on. This is not what we want to do. We don't want to create emotional roadkill. We want to uplift people even as we walk away. You can be kind. You can find some redeemable quality to say, okay, this didn't work, but if you focus on X, maybe it'll be better next time. Would don't treat somebody the way you treated me. There's a part of you that could be better. Focus on that. You hurt me, and I may find it hard to forgive you, but you need to figure out how to forgive yourself by behaving better next time. Now, that may be hard to hear, but it's way harder to hear the laundry list of all the things you did that were wrong. The 25 ways that you hurt me, even if they are justified. This is not easy to do, y'all. It's so much easier to lash out and to express raw emotion. That is when you don't speak up. If the emotion is raw and you just know whatever's going to come out of your mouth will be like a knife. You don't want to be cut by the knife of the tongue. You don't want to cut anybody else that way either. And so that's when not to speak up. That's when to practice silence. When you can speak up, it's after you have assessed the situation, after you've listened to your heart. When you know that not saying something is rubber stamping behavior that's not acceptable. When you know that not saying something gives a person a pass to possibly hurt you or someone else again. When injustice is happening, you need to speak up and find a moment and use the four gateways of speech to help you so that you stay in your integrity, right? You remain in your integrity, but you also speak the truth. You remain true to your highest self, and you have the courage to call things for what they are. You can do this on behalf of others. You can do this on behalf of yourself. And let me just say, it is not easy to do. Going back to my team, when we talked about this, you know, a lot of people find it easier, so to speak, to just be quiet. But if it's not quiet inside, if there's a fire inside because you really feel like you should have said something, that you didn't stand up for yourself, then let it out. But let it out in a controlled manner where you still live in your integrity and whatever the engagement is that you have with another is as lifted as possible. As I say this to you, I promise it's not easy to do. And we get to practice every day. But I hope that you will. I hope that you will contemplate when to speak up and practice it. Be kind to yourself as you do it. So it's not just being kind to others, it's being kind to you too. Hello, Virginia. I see you. And thank you for all of you who have joined today. Thank you for being willing to tackle some of these tough situations that we experience, as we go through life. Life is not always easy. And human dynamics is everything. How we engage each other is everything. We're working, we're engaging with other people. We are playing, we're engaging with other people. How do we do that? How do we do that with grace, with strength, with clarity, living in our truth? Thank you for trusting that this is a space where we can contemplate all of those things. Until next time, have a great day and make it count. Namaste.